Welcome to this segment of Our Ventura TV. I'm Nicole van Dam, and our guest today is Dr. Loretta Redd, who's going to share with us some tips about having fun in retirement. Thank you, Dr. Redd, for coming.
Please call me Loretta, and thank you so much for having me.
So, right out the gate, what do you think is the three main tips for having fun?
Well, retirement should involve three things. One is people, and then places, and then a sense of purpose.
And when you say, let's start with purpose, what would be a sense of purpose?
Purpose, you know, when we walk and work our way through our lives, we have meaning, whether we're moms raising children or in the workplace, working our way towards the next promotion. There's a sense of urgency and there's a sense of purpose going forward. When all of that stops at retirement, you leave the workplace or your children have launched and gone on their ways, then suddenly it's like, who am I now? You know, how do I define myself? So that's a sense of purpose.
And how would someone regain a sense of purpose?
Purpose comes from a lot of things. You know, I want to say that we think of retirement in America as the time to rest, to retire, to go to sleep, to go to bed, you know, to kind of chill. Whereas in some other cultures, like Latin American cultures, the word that they use is jubilado, which is, our translation is to be jubilant, to be happy, to be excited, to have energy. So I think if people could find a balance between the two, where they feel permission, if you will, to redefine themselves, to take a deep breath, to look back at what they've accomplished, and think about what they still might enjoy doing, but in a very jubilant way, so that you're not just sitting in your lazy boy recliner, you know, having a little beverage in the evening, an adult beverage, and basically sleeping through the end of your life.
So would you say it would require maybe going out and volunteering or any other suggestions if people are at a loss of how to fill their time?
You know, there's no one right way to do it. There really isn't. But there are components. I think if people start thinking about this before the time comes, it will help them get prepared for it. For instance, who do you want to spend your time with? Do you want to travel? Do you and your partner have things that you've put off for all these years that you can't wait to get to? Perhaps he wants to go golfing and you want to do something very different. Have that discussion ahead of time so that when the time comes, you have a way of either finding balance, or you might try his sport, he might try yours, or if you're single, then you can join groups, organizations, volunteer. You've spent a whole life accumulating knowledge, accumulating skills. It's time to put those to use, but in a fun way.
So that would be like the purpose part. You also mentioned places.
Yes. Do you want to travel? Where do you want to live? Perhaps you were fortunate enough to have a large home and now everyone is gone, you're empty nesting, and you don't need that. Where would you like to spend your time? Do you want to divide your time? And then when you do travel, is it for the purpose of education, for self-growth, or is it just to see things and be with people? Take a small test ride on a cruise ship, see if that appeals to you. There are all kinds of things. You know, we retirees are taking over the planet. You know, we're the largest group there is. So there are many, many opportunities and more every day to kind of satisfy our longings or our interests or even our curiosities.
And place could also maybe mean moving to an entirely new geographic region, not just traveling?
Of course it could, yes. Yes, it could. It could be going globally. I have a friend who just went to Antarctica and walked around with the penguins, or just moving down the road, or maybe not moving at all, but going and observing travel films, something like that.
And if someone were to move their home, do you have any tips about like what not to do when you move your home?
Ooh, I'm not a real estate expert. I'm not going to touch that one. No, except if you do have a partner or a significant other in your life, have that discussion early on and talk about that. What are you looking for? You know, perhaps you've lived in the desert all of your life and you can't wait to get to a mountaintop. And they really have always wanted to be on the ocean. So, you know, just start exploring that before it becomes a have to. Have a discussion about what you want to do.
And what about people who like move from the desert to the mountain and then try to recreate the desert at the mountain?
Well, I don't know what our world is doing right now, but we may have deserts on mountaintops before long. You know, try not to invest in something that puts you at financial risk, so that if you do find that you made a mistake, or that it wasn't the, you know, the Shangri-La that you hoped it would be, that you have the capacity then to make that change. So go explore a little bit, whether it's with a group or by yourselves, and test it out. You know, Airbnb and VRBO and places like that, or just going to hotels and motels, and then exploring a little bit. Take your time, check out the people. Don't just go to the tourist traps to find yourself, but go out in the different cultures and different neighborhoods and see what it feels like to live there. You may find that you love it, it's absolute perfect fit. You may find that it's not such a great fit.
And what about the last of the 3 Ps, people?
People. Who do you want to spend your time with? If you've been in the workplace, that's been kind of a forced choice. And women, interestingly, are a little more adept at making new friends, typically in a typical household. If they have raised children, they've moved perhaps from neighborhood to neighborhood. And you have to kind of get the lay of the land, where the best schools are, where the parks are, where the kids go, etc. So there's all this communication. Meanwhile, the breadwinner, whether it's the husband, the wife, or whomever, is more stuck at the workplace, if you will. So the engagement of people becomes a little more easy. So do you like people? Do you want to be around people? You can volunteer. You can join groups. You can take classes at a city college or a university. There are all kinds of ways. Once again, you've lived your whole life to have permission to rebloom, if you will, in retirement.
So you mentioned volunteering. Do you have any volunteer places that you've run across in your travels that might make good use of a retired person with skills like in finances or other things?
Well, once again, you know, there's so many. You can go online and just Google best places to volunteer for retirees. There's Senior Corps, there's SCORE, I'm sure there are places even here in Ventura.
So if someone wants to feel useful, meet new people, that's an avenue.
Yes, have a purpose. There's that P word again, to have a purpose. And maybe it wasn't the purpose that you worked toward, but it's an alternate purpose. Perhaps there's a book inside you that you've wanted to write all of your life. Well, that's going to take a little bit of research, maybe a little bit of education, and some time, which you have as a retiree now.
So it sounds a little bit like having fun in retirement is a choice.
Having fun in retirement should be an obligation, but it is a choice. It is a choice. And that's why I love the word jubilado, because it's jubilation.
And it's about conscious decision making. Now, what about pitfalls that people might watch out for?
Being overdeveloped in a singular idea, just in case it doesn't meet all the needs. Trying to perhaps have all of your needs, financial, emotional, intellectual, all forced onto one particular engagement. Or becoming too engaged with perhaps your children's lives after they have launched too. You know, there has to be some separation there as well for them to have their lives and for you to have your own. But for the most part, there are no mistakes. As long as you wake up happy and appreciative of that day, you've done a good job in retirement.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure.
This is Nicole van Dam signing off for this segment of Our Ventura TV. Be well and happy until next time.